The fluorescent lights of the critical care unit cast their familiar harsh glow as Sarah adjusted her stethoscope and checked the assignment board one more time. As the charge nurse that evening, she carried the weight of an entire unit on her shoulders, overseeing patient care, managing staff assignments, and ensuring everything ran smoothly in one of the hospital's most demanding environments. Sarah had worked in this fast-paced, high-stress unit for 17 years, long enough to know that every shift brought its own challenges. Tonight was no different. She had her own patient assignment to manage, was helping cover another area, and was responsible for the overall coordination of the unit. Each nurse had been given an equal patient load, and when a new admission was announced, Sarah made what seemed like a routine decision, assigning the stable patient to Linda, a seasoned nurse whose current patients were scheduled to step down to a lower acuity unit on the next shift. Linda had been Sarah's tormentor for years. The woman seemed to carry a perpetual storm cloud of negativity, and for reasons Sarah had never fully understood, she had made Sarah a particular target of her venom. Whether it was jealousy, personality conflict, or simply a mean-spirited nature, Linda's behavior had been consistently toxic throughout their long working relationship. As the new patient's arrival was announced, Sarah overheard Jessica, a recently graduated nurse fresh off orientation, ask innocently, "We're getting another one?" The young nurse's voice carried the natural concern of someone still learning to navigate the demands of critical care. What happened next made Sarah's blood run cold. Linda's voice cut through the unit like a blade, loud enough to be heard 2 stations away. "It's because Sarah is in charge, and she is a terrible charge nurse." The words hung in the air like poison. Sarah felt her face flush with a mixture of humiliation and rage. Here she was, juggling multiple responsibilities, trying to ensure safe patient care, and supporting her team, only to be publicly undermined by someone who should have been a colleague. When the patient arrived, the scene became even more infuriating. Sarah immediately went to assist with the admission, as was her practice as charge nurse. She watched in disbelief as Linda remained seated in her chair, making no effort to get up or help with her new patient. Jessica, the baby nurse, and a nursing aide rushed in to assist while Linda sat with an air of entitled indifference. Sarah performed the history and physical assessment herself, as she always did to help support the primary nurses. But her mind was racing with anger and frustration. Linda's public disrespect wasn't just unprofessional, it was damaging to unit morale and potentially harmful to the learning environment for new nurses like Jessica. Unable to let the incident pass, Sarah approached Linda after the patient was settled. Her voice was steady but firm as she said, "Don't do that to your coworkers. Don't talk about them negatively so blatantly and loudly in the unit. It looks really bad on us as nurses and creates an environment where people think this behavior is acceptable." Linda looked down, seemingly acknowledging the conversation, but Sarah could see the familiar defiance in her eyes. This wasn't the first time they'd had this conversation, and Sarah suspected it wouldn't be the last. Back home that evening, Sarah sat at her computer, her hands trembling slightly as she composed an email to her supervisor. She had learned over the years that in nursing, verbal complaints had a way of being forgotten or minimized. She needed a paper trail, documentation that could establish a pattern of behavior if Linda's conduct continued to escalate. This wasn't Sarah's first report about Linda. In her 17 years on the unit, she had worked under 5 different unit managers, and 3 of them had received complaints about Linda's behavior. Yet somehow, Linda remained, her toxic presence a constant source of stress and division among the staff. The conversation with her supervisor was lengthy and detailed. Sarah explained not just this incident, but the pattern of behavior that had made working with Linda so challenging. To her relief, her supervisor took the complaint seriously, informing Sarah that the email would be forwarded to the Director of Nursing and Human Resources to establish a documented pattern of problematic behavior. Months passed without any follow-up conversations, which Sarah's supervisor had warned her to expect. HR matters were confidential, and as a staff member, she wouldn't be privy to any disciplinary actions taken. But the change in Linda's behavior was telling. She now barely made eye contact with Sarah, and when interaction was necessary, she gave Sarah looks that seemed to say, "Why are you even talking to me?" The irony wasn't lost on Sarah. Linda had looked at her with disdain for years, so the current cold treatment felt more like a continuation than a change. But there was something different now, a sense that Linda knew she was being watched, that her behavior was finally being scrutinized by people who had the power to do something about it. The situation highlighted one of healthcare's most persistent problems: the toxic colleague who makes everyone's job harder but is difficult to remove due to staffing shortages and the complex nature of workplace discipline. Linda worked only 1 or 2 days per week by choice, which made her infractions less frequent but no less damaging when they occurred. The department was caught between maintaining professional standards and keeping the doors open with adequate staffing. Sarah found herself reflecting on the broader implications of workplace bullying in healthcare. How many nurses had left the profession because of colleagues like Linda? How many new graduates had been discouraged or traumatized by toxic mentors? How many patients had potentially received suboptimal care because of the stress and dysfunction created by workplace bullies? The pediatric and cardiac units where Sarah had worked during her brief departure from this department had shown her what a healthy work environment could look like. Supportive colleagues, constructive feedback, and mutual respect had made even the most challenging shifts bearable. Returning to work with Linda felt like stepping back into a dysfunctional family dynamic she couldn't escape. Despite the ongoing tension, Sarah continued to take the high road, treating Linda with professional respect even when it wasn't reciprocated. She had learned that engaging with toxic behavior often only escalated the situation, and her priority remained providing excellent patient care and supporting her team. As Sarah looked back on the incident, she wondered if she had done the right thing by reporting Linda's behavior. Was documentation and escalation the appropriate response, or should she have found another way to address the situation? The question haunted her, especially knowing that Linda continued to work alongside impressionable new nurses who might learn that such behavior was acceptable in healthcare settings. What do you think about Sarah's decision to report her colleagues' unprofessional behavior? Have you ever dealt with a workplace bully who seemed untouchable? How should healthcare organizations balance the need for adequate staffing with maintaining professional standards? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below.